There we go. Thank you, Casey. So welcome everyone to our annual show and tell. We are really excited to have you all here tonight for 3 awesome talks that we will get to very shortly. We just have a few kind of opening announcements, upcoming events. We'll do job time, and then we're gonna announce the speakers and let them do their thing. So we want to advance to the next one. All right, so tonight's agenda, we'll have PhillyCHI announcements for the first few minutes. Then we'll have the 3 speakers who will introduce very soon. And then around 7:45, we'll do closing remarks and our raffle, which we will talk about coming up. And Laura, do you want to take us away with the sponsors?
Yeah, so thank you to our annual sponsors, which are Rosenfeld, the Judge Group, Think Company, Bentley, Penn AI Tech, Drexel College of Computing and Informatics, and Vanguard. And if your company is interested in sponsoring us, just let us know, and yeah, feel free to email us.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. We also have some sponsorship info on our website. And next slide. I think this will be Epiphany. Oh. Yeah, go for it, Epiphany. Oh.
Well,
going all over the place.
All right, so our 3 Rosenfeld books that we are presenting tonight are Closing the Loop by Cheryl Kababa, Change Makers, How Leaders Can Design Change in an Insanely Complex World by Maria Giudice and Christopher Ireland, and then third, Writing is Designing Words and the User Experience by Michael J. Metz and Andy Welfel. So these will be in the form of an ebook, and we're going to announce 3 raffle winners who will be randomly selected at the end of the call. So make sure you stay until the end because you'll be randomly chosen, and yeah, we'll announce it at the end. So
awesome. Thanks, Epiphany. And just a brief intro on who we are. PhillyCHI is an interdisciplinary group committed to advancing UX, also known as computer-human interaction, as a professional discipline and to strengthening the Philadelphia UX community through regular educational programming and networking opportunities like this event. We dedicate our work to a culture of knowledge sharing and community building. PhillyCHI implicitly supports a safe and positive environment for professionals to gather, converse, and explore interests in user experience. If you witness any unacceptable behavior tonight, please notify a board member. So me, Casey, Ellery, Lara, Epiphany, or V. And next slide. And now we have job time, Ellery.
All right, job time is something we do at every event. It is an opportunity for those who know of open roles, or if you're hiring in a UX or related area, you're welcome to share with the group. So the job time spreadsheet is actually the other tab of the networking sheet. I just shared it again here, but if anyone is hiring, please feel free to unmute yourself and share with everyone about your job. All right, if anyone has any, you can always add to the job time sheet later throughout the night. And if you would like to revisit the networking and job time sheet, make sure you keep it open because we will not be, or save the link because we won't be resharing the link to this spreadsheet after the event.
Awesome. Thank you, Ellery. And now we have 2 PhillyCHI announcements. So our final event of the year is coming up, and it's our annual holiday party. We're super excited about it. It's at a new location this year, Triple Bottom Brewing, which is on Spring Garden Street. It's a really cute brewery. It's going to be Thursday, December 14th from 6 to 8 p.m. Oh,
Sorry.
And the ticket price, this is our only ticket costing event of the year, and it's $15, but that includes a drink ticket and raffle entry, and it supports PhillyCHI's efforts. It helps us offset the cost of the party. There's also going to be a lot of delicious food there for you to have. And it's always a great time. It's a really great time to just celebrate the community and get to know new people. So you'll be seeing an email about that tomorrow morning if you're on our emails, but just a little tip that it is currently live on our website if you wanted to get tickets now. And with that, we have our second announcement, which is our call for 2024 board members. So if you're not aware, PhillyCHI is a completely volunteer-run organization. So all 6 of our board members this year are all volunteers. And, we work full-time jobs, but we also want to give back to the UX community and help build community. So that's why we're all here. And we're looking for more people who want to help us do that. Some of us will be not continuing through 2024 because our terms are January to December, basically. So we're looking for a few new board members to join us starting January 2024 and going through December 2024. We're also looking for some new kind of more involved volunteer positions that aren't as involved as board members, but still really integral. So we're thinking of opening up a mentorship program. So we are looking for mentors. We're looking for group facilitators who can kind of help facilitate special topic talks and just general volunteers as well. So those applications are open and they'll close December 11th. And that link will also be in our email coming up. And it looks like it's also in the chat now. And Casey, if you had anything else to say about this, take it away. Otherwise, go ahead and introduce the speakers.
Yeah, just want to highlight that the mentorship, we're also hoping to add some small group discussions that not necessarily you have to have any experience. Like if you check out the app, it'll kind of say all of this. So yeah, we're trying to cook up some new things next year. But yeah, like starting with our first talk, let's, get right into it. This first talk we have today is enhancing food rescue efficiency through UX, presented by Kaylie Nguyen, UX design intern at Sharing Access, and also a UX and interactions major at Drexel, and Quinn as well, a UX design intern at Sharing Access and a UX and interaction design major at Drexel. So I'm gonna toss it over to you guys to start sharing, and if anyone has any questions, we'll take that periodically for the Q&A portion after they present. So thank you.
Sorry, can I share my screen?
Yes, I think I just stopped.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Quinn and I'm joined today by my colleague Kaylie, and we're here to tell you a story of how we enhance food rescue efficiency through UX. This is a project that we started during our summer internship this year at Sharing Access. So a little bit about Sharing Access. Sharing Access is a nonprofit organization whose main operation is to collect food from donors and distribute them to other nonprofit organizations. They're essentially the middleman between food businesses and food banks. And so Sharing Access has an internal web app to help them with their various operations. And one of the most important features of the app is the warehouse feature. And the main purpose of the warehouse feature is to assist the warehouse workers in recording data during the food collecting and distributing process. However, prior to this project, the warehouse workers had not been able to utilize this feature efficiently. And that's where we came in to help improve the warehouse feature. And so we were the only two designers on the team. I'm Quinn, and my role on this project was UX design intern. I'm also a senior at Drexel University, majoring in user experience and interaction design.
Hi everyone, I'm Kaylie and I'm the other UX design intern at Sharing Access. I'm also a third-year student studying user experience and interaction design at Drexel. And beside me and Quinn, we also had Victoria as our product manager on the team, and also Shaz as the software engineer. So as the only two UX designers of the whole company, our responsibilities included performing user research, ideating and iterating design prototypes, conducting usability tests with the warehouse workers, and also communicating our design solutions to the manager and developer to ensure a high-quality product delivery. So right at the start of the project, our manager, Victoria, already gave us a glimpse of how complex the problem was and also how the workers or the users were struggling with that problem. And to thoroughly understand their frustrations, we built a detailed research plan, including some methods such as direct observation, in which we came in the warehouse and directly observe the workers do their tasks on a daily basis. We had some in-depth user interviews with them to hear their needs and frustrations. And beside that, we also conducted some interactive activities, including focus groups and UX workshop to let the users brainstorm their own ideal solutions to their problems. And the goal of our research was to look into the problems from both business and user perspectives. And we wanted to directly experience what the users were going through. So based on our research findings, we identified three main problems with this warehouse feature of the app. So first of all, for the entry process, the app was missing a lot of input fields for important data, and that's why the workers had to enter all of these important numbers into the node sections, as you can see here. And it was very disorganized and prone to human errors. Besides that, the workers had to manually calculate the numbers on their phone and then input these numbers into the app because the app couldn't do any auto calculation at all, which was also inconvenient and time consuming. Secondly, the distribution process wasn't going well. And for example, if a food bank wants to pick up three different types of produces, let's say tomatoes, bananas, and grapes, for example, the workers would have to create three different forms for one single food bank. So basically, they will have to create this form 3 times, and this repetitive work took a lot of time to complete. And lastly, also another problem with the distribution process, the app was lacking reminders or alert messages for undistributed food. So inside the warehouse, there were some cases when the food was donated to Sharing Access at the end of the day, and it was supposed to be distributed on the following day. But actually, in reality, the app didn't remind the workers at all about these food items, as you can see here. And that's why the workers were also very likely to forget about these food items, which resulted in internal food waste. And this is a huge problem because it strongly goes against the mission and value of Sharing Access. So after examining these three problems with the warehouse feature, we concluded that the app couldn't perform the most basic functions to help the workers in their workflow. So that's why they already created their own temporary solution to their problem. they decided to use Google Sheets to record data in real time. And the reason why they chose this platform was because, as you can see here, they could organize, filter, and sort the numbers. They basically could do anything with their numbers in their own way. And they could also use formulas to do calculation for them, which the app wouldn't do at all. However, this solution still wasn't an optimal one to their main problem, because at the end of the day, they still had to manually transfer all of these numbers from the spreadsheet to the app, which took around 1.5 hours. And the reason why they couldn't skip this process was because Sharing Access app was a company-wide workspace and it is irreplaceable, obviously. So no matter how much they like Google Sheets, they still couldn't replace the app with this platform. And this is a simplified workflow describing how the workers were doing their task in the warehouse. And as you can see here, the red steps in the workflow are the ones that have problems with them. And this workflow also gave me and Quinn a big picture of where the problems were and what we need to focus on in the design process later on. And at the end of our user research process, we also revised our problem statement. So basically, the warehouse feature of the app couldn't support workers in their task. That's why they had to utilize an external platform, which was Google Sheets. And this added unnecessary complexity to the work process and also resulted in inefficiency and waste.
So as we finally understood the problems that the warehouse workers were having with the warehouse feature, we set the goals of this project to streamline the workflow, increase warehouse efficiency, and reduce food waste. So some of the questions that helped guide our design process include: how might we make the app similar to the workers' flow in real time? And how might we implement the advantageous features of Google Sheets into the warehouse feature? So our design process was an iterative one, and it lasted for 4 weeks with a total of 4 different iterations. We started our design process with whiteboard sketches, which were then developed into a low fidelity prototype, which was followed by a mid fidelity prototype, and we ended with a high fidelity prototype. At the end of each iteration, we conducted in-person usability tests with a few warehouse workers and updated our design based on the feedback that we got. So how do we solve the various problems that the warehouse feature had? So first, we enhanced existing entry form by adding individual input entries for each data point, such as case weight, case count, and total weight, as you can see from the prototype. And we also separated the entry process for food before being sorted and after being sorted. And this helps streamline the data entry process by allowing the workers to not have to use the notes section to record data anymore. And because of that, it became a lot easier for them to record and edit entry data. And also, to speed up the process even more, we incorporated auto calculation into every numerical input field. And so the solution helped to reduce data inaccuracy because the workers can now bypass manual calculation and mental math. So as for the distribution process, we solved the inefficiency issue by combining multiple redundant forms into one. As you can see from the prototypes, the workers can now only needed to fill out one form for each particular recipient organization. Even though this organization was picking up both onions and tomatoes at the same time, they still only need to fill out one form instead of like multiple forms like before. And this solution helps speed up the data recording process significantly for the distribution team, and as well as make it a lot easier for them to manage distribution data later on. And finally, to reduce food waste due to forgetfulness, we created a new page dedicated to the remaining produce. And so we also made use of the red color to let the workers know that which food is about to be expired. And this solution helped the workers to keep track of undistributed food and reminded them that they should distribute like food that are about to be expired in a timely manner. And so after 3 months of designing, iterating, and collaborating with the project manager and the developer, we finally launched the beta version of the warehouse feature. And since the launch, we have closely monitored the performance of the new warehouse feature. And our solutions solve the existing problem by seamlessly integrating the app into the worker existing workflow. And as the result, the warehouse workers no longer needed to use Google Sheet anymore. And the final step of their process, which was to transfer data from Google Sheet into the app, was completely eliminated. So some of the impacts that the beta version of the warehouse feature had include reducing the amount of time needed to transfer data from Google Sheet into the app from 1.5 hours each day to 0 hours. Reducing the amount of time needed to fill out forms from 2 minutes to 30 seconds, helping workers avoid making inaccuracy mistakes, which in turn reduced data inaccuracy by 75%, and the app also reminded the workers to distribute food in a timely manner, which resulted in a 60% reduction in food waste. Even though our internship has concluded, we're still volunteering at Sharing Access to continue to improve the warehouse feature. So right now, our top priority is to keep iterating and testing the design and preparing for the official launch. After that, our plan is to closely monitor the warehouse feature performance, as well as to continue to gather the users' feedback on a regular basis to address any design problems post-launch. So there really isn't any project that is without difficulties. And for us, our biggest challenge was that we were the only 2 designers on the team. Since Kaylie and I are still in school, having no UX managers meant that we had to spearhead the entire project on our own. And because of that, there were a lot of times when we weren't sure if we were solving the right problem or heading in the right direction. And also, Sharing Access lacked a formalized design department dedicated to the app. So they had various interns and contractors contributed to the app sometimes in the past. However, the past design was poorly documented. And since the people worked on this app had already left when we joined the company, it was challenging for us to catch up on the previous design.
So how did we overcome these obstacles in our design project? So first of all, throughout the whole process, we always try to actively communicate with our stakeholders on the team, including the manager and the software engineer. And whenever we came up with a new design idea, we would consult them to hear their feedback and insights to address any problems that may arise with our design. And secondly, we also directly engage our users into the design process from start to finish. We really value their comments and feedback on our design because we understand that they were the end users, and Quinn and I were working toward a solution to their problem. And last but not least, we also acknowledge that we were not the most experienced UX designers out there, and we had a lot of things to learn. So we always try to seek advice and feedback from other UX professionals in the industry, including our mentors and professors. And we really appreciate their feedback on our work because they didn't only help us in this project particularly, but also help us in the journey of becoming professional UX designers in the future. So that's the end of our presentation today, and thank you so much for listening to us. We are happy to answer any questions you guys have about this project.
Yeah, awesome job, guys. Like, great job, and loved hearing more about it. We have a couple of questions here in the chat and looking at my second monitor. So the first question we had was curious about the recruitment aspects of your research. You know, how were you able to get workers and what kind of hurdles came up?
So this app was only used by some workers in the warehouse, like there were only around like 5 or 6 people who were using this app. So we didn't really have like a recruitment process for the user research, and we basically just had just communicate closely with those 5 workers, and we work with them throughout the whole research and design process.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks to Nia Bell for that question, by the way. We'll give credit to those who are asking questions. And this next question comes from Anna Olson, one of our presenters later on, actually. She's curious to know at what point in the process you incorporated the focus group feedback.
So we were conducting focus groups to so as you know, like there were only around 5 or 6 workers using this app, and they are also collaborating with each other on a daily basis. So we were thinking it would be great to have a focus group for them, like a table discussion for all of them to sit down and talk and discuss with each other what was their problem and how they wanted to solve it. And after listening to their frustrations and their needs, Quinn and I documented those research insights, and then we work around the design and then hand it back to them to gain their feedback on that design, and also did some usability tests with them. And that design iteration was going continuously until both the users and the designers were agreeing on the design solutions. And after that, we just handed that design solution to the developer. And after that, we just working with the developer to deliver the product.
Great. And we have a couple more minutes and a couple more questions, actually several. We might not get to all of them, but this next one comes from Tran Vo. I'm curious about how you guys how the end users responded to the solution that you have so far.
Yes, so when we launched the beta version of the app, the warehouse workers, they were really excited because I remember they told us that like it helped them a lot. Like it basically like removed their pain because it makes their lives so much easier once we launched the app, and they didn't have to work with like Google Sheet and like have to like manually calculate data anymore. And so they're really, really looking forward to the official launch, which is why that's our top priority right now.
Good luck on that. I'm curious even more just thinking about that. So, yeah, maybe one last question here from Sarah Cooney. So can you tell us what were the most useful skills you learned throughout classes in your program that translated to the project in your internship? Yeah.
Yes, so I'm a senior, so I've gone through the entire program, almost the entire program. And I must say that I use like almost every single one of my skill that I learned in class for this project, because as we mentioned earlier, we didn't have any like the UX manager to kind of like give us direction. So we kind of had to figure out our way there on our own. And one thing that I particularly liked about our program that helped us a lot is that in my 4th year, we got to like develop the entire project, like design and build an entire app on our own. And our program director was just there to give us like direction. And that kind of experience in the classroom really helped me with the internship that we had.
Honestly, thank you so much for answering and doing all of this. Like, great job. We, give it up one last time for Kaylie and Quinn. Drop some clapping hand emojis in the chat as we prepare to introduce you to our second speakers. Yeah. It's weird hearing this like silent or not hearing any like actual applause. Here, I'll clap. Great. So, yep, they're here. It's yeah, I'm just gonna have you guys take it away right now, Helena and Carlo with PamPam.
Hi, everybody. And thank you so much, Casey and Quinn. That was really, really great presentation. All right, let me share my screen. Here we go. Okay. I think we're all good. Everybody can see everything. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Woo. All right. Designing an AI to go outside. Let's see. There we go. So yeah, I'm Helena. I'm one of the co-founders of PamPam.
And I'm Carlo, and the other co-founder of PamPam.
We're also the entire PamPam team. So we're the designers, the developers, the researchers, the marketers, the copywriters, and everything in between. So everything that you see today is done by us. All right. Okay. So yeah, we besides being designers, we're also immigrants who've moved around a lot. So I'm from Ecuador, Carlos from Germany. We've lived in over 10 cities across 3 continents. So we've been thinking a lot about places, how to connect to them, how to understand them, how to discover them, and a little bit everything in between.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of our professional sort of expertise in that area. We've worked on a bunch of place-related products together and separately. The last one we worked on together was Wonder Prompts, the one on the left, which was a project that aims to help you explore the world around you through prompts that you can swipe through. I was a product designer for Facebook for a number of years and worked on a few place-related projects there. One was Facebook Neighborhood, which aimed to connect you to your neighbors that in most cases people nowadays don't feel very connected to. Also worked on a product for discovering local events and people that have similar interests to you in the Facebook app.
All right. So as Carlo mentioned, we've worked on some projects together before. We're always kind of hacking on different things. So back last fall, we started working on a new project, and we were both interested in tooling and in maps. So we started working on something in that area. And the questions that we were really drawn to were, what would a map look like that encourages you to explore? And how can you share your personal experience of the world? So by October 27th of last year, this was kind of like our first PamPam prototype at the time. So the idea was a map that felt really tactile, that you could draw routes on, that you could highlight and draw on, and that you can add stickers to. And by March, this is more what it looked like. Very similar at its core, but really a map in particular for showing places. And so this is a screenshot of like, you know, my guide to Philly. And the idea being here that not only can you like map specific points on a map, but you can also use a tool like a highlighter to say, oh, this is like a street that I really like. And this is like an area that's really worth going to. The other part of PamPam is that it's collaborative. So you can be in the map together, like planning trips together, or like, you know, doing community mapping, like, you know, mapping all of the community fridges in Philadelphia. And also being able to ask your friends for recommendations. So you can all be in the map together. And so a lot of what we were thinking about was going back to that question of what does it look like to share your personal experiences and share, you know, what you know about the world and what your friends know about the world as well. And so these were like the ethos that we were thinking about at the time, you know, and this one really stood out to us in particular, exploring through people over exploring through algorithms. So that was really important to us. And then ChatGPT happened and all of the AI craze, and we were quite conflicted because we were really curious about it, but it also kind of seemed to conflict with our ethos of like sharing personal experiences and personal experiences over algorithms. But we did have this question in mind: how can AI help people share and discover the world?
Yeah, so and we decided to give it a try and think a little bit about it, how we can incorporate it into what we're working on. So it's March this year. Everybody's talking about OpenAI, ChatGPT. You go to the park, people talk about all these things that they start using ChatGPT for, in all sorts of use cases. And one of those use cases that you hear about is like, yeah, people use it for travel planning. Which is great, is actually pretty good at it. If you look, for example, at like things to do on a rainy day in Philadelphia, this is kind of what you get. And this is a good example. I think all these things are true and probably good things to do in a rainy day. But there are examples where it's you know where it's making up stuff. The AI experts call that hallucinations. And so you don't see that in a chat-based interface. And obviously, that's not great. Like, you don't want to travel somewhere and get stranded because ChatGPT told you to go somewhere. And so we were thinking about combining that with the medium that we were working on, and basically bringing the smarts of ChatGPT and OpenAI into that map-based surface, and started hacking on that idea a little bit. And that's sort of like where we were landing, I think around the time of March, where we basically help people generate maps with AI from prompts. And you know, this solves a few problems for us. One, it helps people get started. You know, if you're planning a trip, like this gives you something to go off of. You can then delete things, you can add things, invite your friends to go from here. But also, most importantly, like you can see that these are real places. Like we actually cross-references that with data from Google Maps, which is important, and that's something you don't get in ChatGPT. So we'll do a little demo of how that looks today. So this is our site that we actually just launched yesterday, and it's on PamPam City. We'll drop the link later in the chat. And so what you can do here is, first of all, you can give that globe a spin, which is fun. And you can click on some of these guides that we created as examples. And I see that some other people are already showing up here. This is cool. But so you can click in here and put in any prompt. We'll just start with 3 days in Philadelphia. And then you can see ChatGPT here working on a map for us with a few things to do in 3 days. And yeah, like this is essentially what it looks like. You can click on these places, learn a little bit more. These are all linked to Google Maps. We're not attempting to really replace Google Maps for certain use cases, but that gives you that assurance that these are real places. And yeah, like we have a little guy here sitting on the right that you can ask more, but we'll get a little bit more into that. Now hand it back to Helena.
All right. Well, I'll actually hand it back to Carlo.
Actually, yeah, I was going to do this part. It's a little bit more about the behind the scenes of how this is working. So what you saw is user inputs a prompt. In this case, I clicked on a suggestion, but you can enter anything you like. It's actually pretty fun to put things in there like female leaders of the world, for example, or things like that. We then sent that to OpenAI and asked for a table of places, and then we talked to Google Maps via an API to geocode those places. Geocoding basically means turning an address or place name into coordinates that we can put on a map. We then also use OpenAI to pick those emojis that you see on the map. And last but not least, we show all these places that we get back in that format that you just saw on the map. That's a little bit, there's more to it, but that's at a high level how this works. Yeah, why is it interesting? I think one sort of learning that we thought would be worthwhile calling out for y'all is that, you know, there's a lot of talk nowadays about ChatGPT and LLMs, and we wanted to point out that LLMs are not just for text and not just for writing. It's actually super powerful if you combine this technology with other technologies like mapping in this example. And so I'd encourage everyone in your capacities as designers to explore this technology and think about how you can apply it in different ways for whatever you're working on.
All right. And LLMs are large language models, just to define that acronym. All righty. There we go. Next. Okay, so we built out that prototype in March. And so what did people think of AI in PamPam? So we had an alpha that we started around June. We had some early testers at the time. Again, we had been conflicted, does AI go against the PamPam ethos? Oops. But the feedback was really positive. This is a quote from one of our alpha testers. The robot is amazing. A lot of people were really excited about it. And they, like Carlo mentioned earlier, found it a really good way to just like kickstart a trip plan or kickstart a map that they were making for a friend. And Molly here, one of our users, says something interesting that we want to talk about, which is like, what if it could wear like a fun hat or carry something to suggest travel? And so in our first prototype, this was the bot that we put in our toolbar. It was like this vintage toy bot that we found online that we really liked. And that kind of like got the job done for a while, but we did want to iterate on it. And we experimented with some different interfaces. Besides a chat, we also tried doing what is kind of known as a Command K menu. So this is like a menu that pops up where you have these different commands and it's meant for like very quick access and quick actions. But this felt too productivity focused. It felt too kind of like stern for what PamPam wanted to be. We actually do have a Command K menu in PamPam as well, but we still wanted to keep that chat-like interface with the personality because that felt more like PamPam. And what did we want that to feel like? We want this bot to feel curious, friendly, funny, and kind of like a local, like somebody who you might talk to kind of like on the street. And so there's different ways that we thought about that. One is like with the prompt itself, but the other one was then kind of translating this into a character of some sort. So these were some of the characters we experimented with. We even experimented, this is my grandfather, like, I don't know, he was kind of like an explorer type guy. Like, is he the Pam bot? And so we're landing on this person for now, and we are landing on this kind of chat experience. And there's a lot that goes behind the prompt that powers this AI, and to get that right tone and personality is actually quite tricky. And if you go and play with PamPam later, you'll see that it's maybe not as funny and as friendly as we want it to be yet. And so that's definitely something we're still working on, and is something that's quite tricky to do. But in the meantime, we are still working on the different users, the different characters here. We'd actually love feedback from the audience here today. We have some options here, contestant A, B, C, D. Drop in the chat which one you would like to guide your trips and your mapping experiences. All right, we see some answers rolling in. There we go. Okay, so this is something we're still working on as well. All right, but the part of this, the main point there is that the tone and personality of your AI is really part of the design. It's part of the product, and that manifests itself in the way that this chatbot is talking to you and the tone, but also the way that you present it, the way that it manifests itself in the product. So, the way that you interact with ChatGPT, if you use that, is like one tone that it has, but you can create different tones and personalities. And that's something we're trying to do in PamPam, and something that we expect to see more as AI design continues. All right, so what next? Where are we going with PamPam and in terms of designing an AI that's about going outside, about exploring the world? So, again, this is still at the heart of what we want with PamPam. How can you share your personal experiences of the world? What you know about the world, what your friends know about the world, that's still super important to us. And now there's this added layer of like what OpenAI knows. And what are the kinds of things that OpenAI knows? It knows general knowledge, history of the world. It knows key landmarks, any information that's out there on the internet, it is going to be accessible. And that's actually super useful, so that you don't have to, here in Philadelphia, when you're making a map for your friend, map out the Liberty Bell and the Museum of Art every time. Like, those are just things that, one might visit in Philadelphia. And as we're thinking about like, all of these different knowledge types and how they can help to share experiences of the world, what we've been thinking about now is like, what knowledge is, available for cities and organizations, let's take like a historical society, for example, and how can we use generative AI to make that more accessible to visitors and to locals? So that's kind of the question that we're noodling on now. And that's kind of where we're focusing on next with PamPam, an AI assistant for cities, tour operators, and organizations. So, right now the AI bot is using OpenAI just as the general data set. But, what we can also do and what we plan to do is what they call embedding this more targeted data set so that that can power the AI bot. And so those are kind of our plans and how we're thinking of extending AI and PamPam and generally how we think about, extending AI to go outside. Right. So, okay, our third learning here, kind of go back to the beginning of this talk, we were, we set out to make this map making tool. We were conflicted about how AI might integrate into it. But ultimately, for us, it was, finding out that AI can complement your product and it doesn't really need to, replace it. There's a lot of ways that it can augment your product itself. And of course, augment what people can do too. We definitely are not trying to replace tour operators or anything like that. It's just a way of augmenting. Yeah, so these were the kind of our 3 learnings that we had as we were building out AI for PamPam. Combining LLMs with other technologies like Google Maps API and mapping in general has been really interesting. The tone and personality is definitely key. And like I said, AI can be augmenting your product instead of just like replacing your product entirely. That's it. Thank you so much. Feel free to reach out to us. And I think somebody can tell me about the time.
Yes, you're doing great. We're we're ready to ask some questions, which is awesome because there are a lot. So first question from Celia Fong is, what font did you use in your presentation? Reminds me of vintage Cheerios, and I love it. I also really like it too. So
yeah, the font that we're using is called Perfectly 90s. We can link to it. It's by Jen Wagner. You can find it online. So shout out to her. She makes great fonts. And yeah, I think, yeah, you're totally right. I think it's very, very close to the Cheerios font.
yeah, that makes sense. Like 90s brand Cheerios. And kind of from that same question, how did you customize the emoji avatars?
Yeah, we're actually also using AI for that. So there's a service called Replicate where people create models that you can use to do different types of things, like generate images, remove background, and things like that. And so there's models that are trained on creating emojis, and we're using one of those models to create emojis for pretty much anything.
And I'm not sure if this is also going to be a similar question from this one comes from Hannah and Nguyen. As a designer, what software development tools and concepts did you learn more about while building PamPam?
That's a great question. I think we learned a lot as we sort of went through this process. I think we're both also working on AI products professionally on the products that we're building in our day jobs today. A lot of it is just like trying out things like using the OpenAI playground to test different prompts. And then, when it comes to coding those things, yeah, there's definitely a lot of sort of JavaScript and backend code involved in creating those maps and talking to the different services. Nothing in particular to call out there, but like I would definitely recommend anyone to play with the OpenAI playground. ChatGPT is sort of like the consumer surface that you would use as an end consumer, but the playground allows you to sort of see a little bit more behind the scenes of how it's working. And anything that you can do in that playground is basically accessible to the engineers that you're working with. And so in our case, that's all combined in our 2 worlds. hope that helps.
I mean, honestly, I feel like I just learned a lot in that statement. So I hope other people did too. This next question comes from Kimmy Rettig. They just tried PamPam while you guys were talking. So super fast. Did you do things code-wise to have good web performance?
Definitely happy to chat more about that offline if there are more specific questions about that. Not really. We're using Space on Next.js if that rings a bell for some people. But otherwise, yeah, like we're talking to set APIs, and it's relatively off-the-shelf stuff that we're doing and using.
Cool. And we have just like a couple more minutes, like maybe 2 more questions here. This next question from Emma Koth is, are you planning on making PamPam in multiple languages?
That would be super awesome. We are a team of 2 right now, and localizing is very difficult to get it right. So not yet, but that would be amazing. One day, would absolutely love to. You know, I speak Spanish, Carlo speaks German, so definitely get that.
Awesome. And the people want to know, why PamPam? What's PamPam?
So PamPam is just map backwards. And Pam itself was not available. So we just went all in on PamPam. And yeah, the map is at the core of PamPam for sure.
Awesome. I think everyone's pretty satisfied with that answer. I mean, that's probably satisfying like half of the chat right now. Let's give it up for Helena and Carlo. And if you guys, would share some of your contact information if you want for people to send more specific questions or other questions, please do that. That'd be awesome in the chat. And I personally really liked, I'm so biased. I love everyone speaking today, but you guys did a great job, of course. And
thanks for having us.
Yeah,
I'm audible.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And our next group will be the City of Philadelphia team. Yep. Let's with Mohammad and Anna. And I think, yeah, that's right. I won't be able, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I wasn't sharing my screen, but you guys are, so take it away.
All right, can you see it all right?
Yes.
Great.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alia Hatch, and I'm here with my colleagues Mohammad Sial, Anna Olson, and Bill Wray. And tonight we'll be giving you a high-level overview of how to overcome hurdles to user research. Tonight we'll be discussing 4 different hurdles. 1, making the case for research. 2, recruiting participants. 3, logistics and methodology. And 4, building a habit. So why do user research? We'll start by sharing a quote from one of our participants who said, "Is this a regular practice of what the city of Philadelphia does? I think it's a very valuable practice. I very often, particularly when I'm using company websites, say, did they try this with real people? Duh." So our users, who are primarily City of Philadelphia residents, it's very important to us that they are able to access experiences that are usable, useful, and desirable. And one of the things that we found during this process was that there are a number of users in Philadelphia who use our site phila.gov differently than a lot of other people, which brought into focus the need for more accessibility. So in this next slide, you'll see some feedback that we received from a user who used the site zoomed in a lot more than the average user. We're not hearing audio.
Let me try that again unmuted.
Okay.
think it's a bit confusing. I think there's a lot of assumptions that you have to make, or I should say that you have to, this would frustrate me, because there's just a lot of things that you have to think through. I'm trying to find a food site. It's just too much that it's almost like you have to be knowledgeable of the course or something. I don't know. It's frustrating.
So to give a brief overview of our project scope, we conducted 64 usability tests between January and April of 2023. Roughly half were conducted in person. The other half was conducted remotely. And we had used a remote testing platform for some of our tests. And we also had some that were translated with the assistance of an interpreter. About 47% of our 47 women participated in our study. 24 participants identified as living with a disability, and 36 were residents of Philadelphia. So what was the motivation for this work? There was an urgent need for direct feedback on digital services provided through phila.gov. It was quickly scaled in 2020, but the infrastructure, not so much. So we had two main goals: building a user research practice through process learnings and getting direct feedback for improvements to our website. And this project, it was funded by the Operations Transformation Fund, which was an investment in internal projects to transform operations and help the city of Philadelphia better serve its communities.
All right, so now we're going to move on to our first hurdle, which is making the case. So how do you go about pitching user research to your organization if it's something that's not already part of your process or something that you don't currently have funding for? The following content that I'm going to share with you is actually taken from a pitch deck that led to us getting funding for this project. So first, you're going to want to explain what is usability testing. Many of your stakeholders, they might not actually fully know what usability testing means, or they may have misconceptions of what exactly it is. So you're going to need to define it for them first. And some of the things that you're going to want to really highlight is that it's you're taking representative users and giving them realistic tasks. So the idea is you're showing that you're testing the performance of the website in a real world scenario. And so it can be even more helpful if you're able to provide relevant examples to your stakeholders so they can get an idea of, what that experience is really like for users on a day-to-day basis. And so next, why is usability testing the approach that you want to take? So you may need to do a little bit of desk research to find evidence. There's a lot already out there. If you can find statistics, if you can find metrics, that'll be particularly helpful. Some of the things that we highlighted here were that it's high cost or high impact and cost effective. It's a very reliable method in UX, something that a lot of UX designers use, and they're the first to say that it's something that you need in your organization. And also it's something that we within our organization saw firsthand had value. So we actually used prior research to make that case. If you have a case study, if you've done research before, it's really helpful to provide that because you're able to show rather than tell. But if you do not, you can try to find case studies from similar industries, similar contexts, or you can also consider doing a low-cost pilot yourself. And so these next slides, I'm going to move through a little bit more quickly. Why is it necessary now? You're going to want to state what your immediate goals are for your research study, and also talk about long-term goals in terms of like building a research practice and getting to know your users for your organization. And why haven't we done this already? What barriers prevented you from doing this research before? And this is again speaking to why is now the right time for you to do this research? And then who will this impact? If you can demonstrate the value, the best way to do so is to speak about and actually list out the users, the customers who are going to benefit from those improvements. And if you have it, it's helpful to be able to speak to the process efficiencies that it could create. Like we saw in the first presentation, if you're able to provide those metrics, that can be particularly helpful. And also if you can speak to any potential income that can be generated.
Great, so I'm going to be talking about an early hurdle we faced in recruitment for this project. So just as a recap of what the assignment was, the city of Philadelphia had its website had very organically and expanded quite considerably to offer more services online in 2020, and had made a lot of changes as a result. But we wanted to actually test those with users to see how they were responding to them and if they were meeting user needs. So we wanted to test phila.gov in its entirety for usability with a specific focus on accessibility. So obviously, as with any recruit, we had 3 main questions to ask. Who would we be recruiting? How many people would we be recruiting? And how would we be recruiting them? Given the scope of this project, some of these things were actually already determined for us in the early pitch. So who we were recruiting, the users of phila.gov, how many we'd be recruiting. We were budgeted for 60 tests based on participant incentives. And how would we be recruiting them? Through recruitment partners, which again, were budgeted for in the initial pitch. But there were some pieces that were much less clear. So we had to approach the question, who actually uses phila.gov? And that's a surprisingly wide range of people. That includes city employees, potential visitors to the city, residents. So who should we focus on within that group? How specific can we be? We had to decide on our recruitment strategy before we had even picked which pages we were going to test. So we couldn't be fully targeted in our recruitment, but we also knew that there were some groups that we were already going to be hearing from in other forums, like city employees could register feedback about the site. So we decided to focus on Philadelphia residents and thus try to make our recruit representative of the city of Philadelphia. But then that leads to this third question, which is how in the world do we do that? How do we accurately represent the residents of Philadelphia in a city that has as much breadth and diversity as Philadelphia does? So we head to the next slide. This was our first mini hurdle within that, figuring out a representative sample, an authentically representative sample. We knew we had census data, but that didn't feel as granular as we needed it to be. So we started working with other groups within the city that had also been working closely with residents, working with demographic data. We have linked in here to a couple of different resources that I think it would be cool for you all to check out for your own projects. But we worked with folks from the Equitable and Community Engagement Toolkit who had developed much more granular demographic data and asked for what language they used when they were sourcing participants. We spoke to the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities and referred to the Disabilities Characteristics Map, which is an incredible project that they put together to look at rates of disability across the city. We also got their feedback on using person-first language in our screener surveys. We worked with the Digital Equity Initiative to determine rates of digital literacy in Philadelphia and what proxy demographics we might use to represent that. And we also worked with the Office of Immigrant Affairs and consulted their language dashboard to see what languages were most commonly used for services in the city, and therefore what languages it might be good to do testing in. So we built on a lot of great other work. And here's what we landed on. We did go off of census data using more granular language. So an example of that, for instance, is that where the census might ask if someone is Black/African-American, we knew based on our discussions with the Equitable Community Engagement Toolkit that, people might actually prefer to identify as Afro-Caribbean or, and not relate to a Black or an African-American category. So there were, we used more granular language to focus on recruiting for race and ethnicity, income, and digital literacy. And then for our testing breakdown, we dedicated 1/3 of our tests to individuals with disabilities. And that was an intentional sort of over-recruit or over-representation to try to speak to the accessibility of the website. For remote tests, where we couldn't always guarantee that we would have residents from Philadelphia in testing, we tried to recruit from sanctuary cities and mid to large size, mid-Atlantic or northeastern cities with similar makeup to Philadelphia. And we did language based on frequency of use, and then also different languages that used a different character set so that we could check that on the website. So you'll notice in that we didn't really focus on targeting for age, for gender or sexuality, or for the specific users of certain pages. And that's really because we wanted to have a robust recruit, and we knew that if we were too narrow, we might miss out on some of the other categories that we felt were really important for representing the city. So that leads to part two. I'll kind of gloss over this honestly, but working with our recruitment partners, these were a couple of things that we encountered working with recruitment. One was aligning on language. Our partners didn't always use the same descriptors, including that very granular data, or person-first language in their recruitment of people with disabilities. So, finding, sort of translating our needs into their language was an occasional difficulty. Determining parameters, where are we willing to make exceptions or be flexible? And then recruiting for people with disabilities. We went back and forth about whether to recruit by disability or by assistive device, and ultimately landed on assistive device because we wanted to see how the technology interacted with the website. And this is how we stayed organized with our ultimately 64 tests, but different color coding to mark from which recruiting partner and which sort of test we did by desktop and mobile. Anyway, this is just to show how we tried to account for all of those variables in real time. I'll pass it off.
I'm going to talk briefly about the logistics and methodology for our project. So we tested in a variety of formats, including in-person or remote sessions, those being moderated and unmoderated, and some with interpretation. These happened in a variety of locations, which we have some images for. We conducted sessions in English, and translated sessions in American Sign Language and Simplified Chinese. And we ultimately settled on having 6 total scenarios that were task-based to test the participants with. And these included subjective feedback, and over the service pages and web apps that we're looking into. And we did this with laptops and mobile phones. So here is a shot from the back room of Usability Suite showing an in-person session. Here is a in-person session where we have a moderator and note taker as well as an interpreter. So this took place at a public library, and these were translated into Mandarin. And this shows what we're looking at when we're doing remote sessions. So this is over the magic of Zoom, like we're experiencing currently, and you could see exactly what the user was experiencing, including those specific tools that they used. And so here's a contrast manipulation tool that affected color. This was a system called User Feel, which allowed us to have tests without moderation. So we sent these out to recruited participants, and then we got to look at the recordings and see how they interact and perform against the tasks, as well as the specific comments that they made. So after collecting all this data, we learned a lot about the differences between these different modalities. And to kind of present this to stakeholders, we looked into the pros and cons of these various modalities. And we don't have time to get into all the details, but involve major differences with the type of data you collect, as well as how you observe participants when you're doing it with or without a moderator. And ultimately, we looked into presenting it in this way. So we called it the modality matrix. So there are major differences in the amount of control you have, the amount of time it takes to set up, and the cost of these different techniques. And so as mentioned earlier, we're looking specifically into the experience of disabled individuals and how that affects the accessibility of the site. And we learned firsthand about a diverse array of assistive technologies, which was really cool to see all that stuff. And so it involves stuff for vision disabilities, including zoom text, which I showed earlier, other contrast magnification tools, screen readers, braille keyboards, etc. Also had participants that experienced physical and motor disabilities. And so these involve sticky keys, different types of keyboards to interface, including a mouse stick to interact with the keyboard. And for those with hearing disabilities, we get to learn about how to do live ASL interpretation, the effects of closed captioning. And interestingly, we looked into the experience of those interacting with these translated pages. So how does their different mental models and cultural contexts affect their interpretation of the logic of the page? based on how, or as it compares to how it's designed, as well as the page content with the specificities and nitty-gritty of like individual word translations. So this is a quick video that shows a screen reader for a
I
blind
guess when
participant.
I'm at a website for the first time, I generally arrow through it to see what are my options.
Okay.
And then once I think I have the gist, then I do a JAWS find and I search for a string of characters that I think I could find.
Okay. And so is the JAWS find functioning as a whole website search, or it's specifically on the page?
Just the individual page.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting how fast the screen readers go. Here is a in-person session with a translator. So this was like consecutive translation where we spoke and it was translated into Mandarin to clarify the moderator's guide. And so there's differences between these types of, we did consecutive for our Mandarin sessions, and we did simultaneous for ASL, where we had the ASL interpretations happening live and those remote sessions that were going on. And this was our first time for all of us, I think, doing these types of interpreted sessions. So we had lots of learnings and like the development of it, as well as the type of data you collect and what it meant for recommendations for the site.
All right, so our last hurdle, we'll go through this one a bit quickly. Building a habit. So how do you go into the next step, which is actually making research a part of your process? So some quick tips around this. You want to make sure you have the infrastructure to do testing to pick it up very quickly. So you have all the tools and resources you need, and you reduce the barriers, whether that's making time for it in your process, scheduling that, and putting that actually into your development and design process, and having a dedicated space, and even collecting the equipment and building a sort of device library where you have all of those tools that you can sort of have at your hand whenever you need to do any research. And then also when you're thinking about frequency, we kind of thought about this in two different ways. So targeted testing is an approach, which is you're doing research when it's needed on a specific project. So you may need immediate feedback on a new app you're developing, for example, versus routine testing is sort of maintenance or regularly monitoring the performance of your product over time. And so I'm going to share here, this is a proposed sort of schedule or calendar for testing. And this is how we propose this to our team and our stakeholders. We looked at how targeted testing might be, more focused, confined in scope. You may only have, a week to do it, and you're getting that direct feedback on something that's currently in development, versus something like routine quarterly testing on the right in green. You may have more time, and you may use this opportunity to investigate some things that you've started to sort of take note of over time that you want to, look into more. This is when you have sort of more space to sort of explore and learn new things about your users and your product. And then routine monthly testing was something that we came up with because usability research was sort of new to our team. So we wanted to have something that would help us build that muscle and get comfortable with doing testing, and also start to build those capacities within our team. So this is sort of just an example of that testing plan, and this may look entirely different for your team, but this is where you want to take it, is thinking about how you can be able to implement this going forward, and making sure it's something that's balanced and that you can carry forward into the future. There were a lot of things that we didn't get to discuss today, but we're happy to continue this conversation with anybody who's interested. Here's some things that we also looked into within this project, and also wanted to promote this usability testing playbook, which we're currently working on. That's going to go a lot deeper into many of the things that we discussed today. I will drop a link to fill in your email if you're interested in getting updates about that. But we went a little bit over time. Sorry about that, but thank you everybody for joining us and hearing about our project.
No, all good. And it claps to this awesome team. It looks like I just love the detail that you guys put into this. I'm a user researcher myself, and I feel like I learned a lot too, just from the detail that you guys had. I'll be checking out that playbook. Do have a couple of questions here. So the first question is from Chloe at you, Mamlet. How did you select which tasks would be included in testing, especially since phila.gov is such a huge site?
We threw a lot of spaghetti at the wall. So we sent out a survey to other people who worked on the product team and the content teams to see what pages they had noticed issues with. We used, there's like a section of the website where you can send in a complaint, basically, if something hasn't worked well. So we looked through those complaints. The content team hears a lot of feedback from departments about which pages aren't working well. So we asked for their input. And then we also organized, basically we got all of those suggestions initially, and then we organized them in one big spreadsheet to make sure that we had every kind of essentially like WordPress element represented then. So to have a map, to have a dropdown, to have, all of these other elements, and then further divided those pages into testing scenarios. And we also then selected representative finders for the web apps. I mean, it was kind of a blur. I think the thing we landed on ultimately was that it might have been as effective to throw darts. But we did try to do a variety of different filtered processes to see what pages had the most heat. And we also narrowed by impact, I guess. So.
Casey, you're muted.
Yeah, I've been doing this all day. Yeah. I mean, honestly, agreed. Like sometimes it is just throwing spaghetti at the wall, even if you do know you have darts. So this next and last question comes from Jody. She's curious about the timeline of UX research at philly.gov. Like, were there any other people such as designers, product managers, or other stakeholders pressing for hiring UX researchers that just jump-started this initiative?
So we've done research prior to this project, but it was sort of done kind of sporadically. We didn't have dedicated user researchers, and so this project was really an opportunity for us to take a pause and think about how we wanted to go forward, because it was something that we wanted to build into our process. But we realized that we also had a lot to learn about how to do user research. So that was something that was really interesting about this project, was not only were we taking that feedback and actually making improvements to the website based on that feedback, but the main goal was to actually learn about what works best for our team, and what options do we have when we're doing research. So we're able to carry that forward now and make recommendations to our organization about how we suggest they move forward with doing research, and what we have the capacity for. So it's definitely a goal of our team to continue. But again, I think part of the value of this project was people are going to have a different level of resources. Sometimes you may not have as much time. Sometimes you may have, a lot of time and money or funding, like we did when we started this project, but you want to continue to do research through all those phases. So what sort of modalities, what sort of scale and scope of testing is going to allow you to continue to do that research? And so hopefully this presentation kind of helped you get answers into like, what are you able to do now? How can you get started now with what you have?
Yeah, I mean, it's truly inspiring, like just seeing, you guys do this work, like 64 usability tests. That is a lot, honestly. Yeah, so thank you again so much, and thanks again to like everybody who participated and came out to hear our show and tell for this year. Again, like audible applause here, and I'm gonna take it away to Kieran, who, oh no, sorry, actually Epiphany. She's gonna announce our board, our raffles. Our book
Are you sharing the screen with the book names again, or should I just read it off?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am doing that.
Okay.
It is right here.
Perfect. All right. So the first winner is Naya Bell for Closing the Loop. Little E round of applause. Second winner is Camila Quintana for Changemakers. And then third is Joel Takao for Writing is Designing. So congrats.
Awesome. Congrats, everyone.
If you three,
oh.
sorry, could email me your or send me a personal chat of your email. If not, we can look it up in the Eventbrite. But if you could send me your email directly, that'd be great. Okay, go ahead, Kieran.
Awesome. Thanks, Epiphany. Yeah, I just wanted to say once again, thank you all for coming out tonight, for staying till the end. Thank you so much to our presenters. You all did an amazing job. We all loved the variety of the presentations, and I think we all learned a lot from it tonight. So thank you all for coming out tonight. Make sure to stay tuned for our holiday party and all of our other great events coming up in 2024. So until then, thank you and good night.